This is Roger Struckoff with Syscon TV, day 2 of Cloud Expo West in Santa Clara, sitting with Dave McCarthy with Bsquare. We were talking a little bit yesterday and a little bit before the camera rolled about the Internet of Things, IoT, and we were recounting how a year ago general advice was sort of start small, don't try to do too much, and then see what happens. Okay, it's a year later, so it's time to see what happens. Welcome, by the way, and you were saying you have some real stories from customers that have started with IoT strategies and they've learned some things. So what have they learned?
Yeah, well, I mean, Roger, and I want to start off and say that it is absolutely right. I mean, you do want to, start small and not try to bite off too much in an IoT deployment. Otherwise, you might find yourself just sort of getting off track, sort of thing. But you're also right in the point that once customers have started to do this and they get a year into their IoT deployments, they start realizing that they may have been a little short-sighted in some of the ways that they built out their deployment. And the key thing that I see a lot of people looking at is, how can I take equipment data, pull it back in an IoT solution, and show it in a dashboard? And people, there's a term we joked about last year about actionable data, and what does it really take to get to actionable data? And a lot of people look at dashboards as, well, I can now see data that I never saw before, and I can take action, and that seems great. But what they start running into are two main problems. And the first is around scalability. If you're trying to manage a deployment where you're consistently adding devices and data, and by the way, most customers that start going into a connected environment completely underestimate the volume of data coming in. Yes. And so they hire an army of people to stare at dashboards, almost NASA style, and they just can't react fast enough to conditions in the field.
Okay, here's a question I just thought of at the top of my head because I was thinking about this analytics thing this morning. Is this why, or are people sort of trying to turn to AI to handle this? It sounds like there's so much data coming in, so many dashboards, and I'm getting a sense that a lot of people want the machine to keep thinking for them and not have to let the AI make sense of what's going on.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like, some level of automation is critical, and that's really where we start guiding people down, because you can use the analytics for a couple of different purposes. One, of course, is to try to get at the nuances of data that you just can't see with the human eye, because a lot of times, especially in the industrial environments that we work in, we're looking for really complex events. It's not just, here's a temperature threshold exceeding a certain degree. It's like you have to find 5 different things happening all at the same time. Well, actually, not even all at the same time, but different events happening over some time window, and then identify that and then take some action. And that's where I think, that other aspect of automation, it's not just finding those hard to find events, but how can you automate things so that then the humans on the dashboard just say, hey, we've already solved this for you, here's what happened, but not require Homer Simpson, if you will, to push the button every time he sees a light go on.
What I'm thinking of, yeah, Homer at the nuclear plant, that just never gets old. What I'm thinking of, I was talking to some people at GE about this, and I have this idea that what look like anomalies become patterns. Once you have machines looking at enough data, or like you said, 5 events simultaneously, and to the human eye, stuff may look anomalous or extremely rare, but actually, when you have machines taking track of all this data over time, you're sort of uncovering new patterns. Is that sort of what you're getting at?
Well, yeah, so I mentioned there was 2 big things that people run into once they've been doing this for a little while. One is they run into the scalability issue. The second is really the accuracy of decisions. And I think that's what that really hits at, because sometimes machine learning and techniques like this can pull out correlations. You see this happening and this is happening at the same time, but correlation is not necessarily causation, right? It could just be a fluke. There could be a lot of reasons why that's happening. And so I think, as we go from sort of simple IoT solutions to more complex IoT solutions, and I think this is probably what came out in your conversation with GE, is that you start building more of a wealth of data, you get more understanding, and by using some of the level of either what AI or just automation through rules engine technology can bring together, now you're starting to really be able to hit the scale issue and the accuracy issue.
And if we move back a little bit with the Internet of Things, as you say, no one buys in IoT. It's not IoT in a box. But you're saying customers are coming to you more with a challenge of, I want to do this, I want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, It's great. We in the industry, we all need a term to rally around, and IoT is a good one. Industrial IoT could even be better for the types of companies that are in that. But even when you talk to those, I speak to customers all the time, and I say, when we're doing even like RFP responses as a vendor to a customer, and I say, do you look at this as an IoT solution? And they say, absolutely not. We look at this as either we're trying to predict failure of equipment, we're trying to optimize performance of things in the field, we're trying to get a better understanding of where our assets are and how they're acting, and so they think of it more in terms of business logic, and so there's a little bit of a divide and disconnect, I think, between what vendors are saying in the space and how customers think about it. And I think the smart companies are starting to figure out how to adjust that vocabulary to bridge that divide, but it's still a challenge.
Dave doesn't pitch. I have him on these panels, and he talks and talks, and you're so disciplined about really focusing on the issues that your customers face. But if you could tell our audience here a little bit more about Bsquare and what you do, so they get a full understanding of where you're coming from.
Yeah, Bsquare is both an ISV and an SI, and so what we bring to the equation when it comes to specifically industrial and business-oriented companies trying to build IoT solutions, a software stack that's a product that really enables companies to get their time to value a lot quicker. But then we also recognize that when you do these types of deployments, you also need some level of integration work, whether it's integration on the equipment side or integration on the enterprise sort of system side. And so we can bring together both the sort of product elements and services, so that at the end, you don't think that you're buying all these IoT piece parts, but you're getting those business solutions that we talked about, those use cases that these companies really care about. It's something that we've been doing in one form or fashion for over 20 years, and we're really excited about where we see the industry going, and really seeing customers now and companies really starting to take advantage of what this can do.
Yeah, we don't really have a crystal ball, but where they're going, where are they going? And we talk again, say, a year from now, where are we going to travel this coming year?
Yeah, I think it's getting better. Originally, I think a lot of the early use cases were all about cost savings, and that's an easy one for people, for the CFO to sign off on. If I spend this much here, I can save this much over here. But I think, this whole idea of business transformation, and companies really starting to say, okay, well, now that I have this data and I have this power, what could I do if the previous business constraints weren't there anymore? Like, how could I turn my business into more of a services organization, or how could I launch new products that do things that customers have been asking for a long time, but those companies couldn't deliver. So I think we're going to see some more of that transition into some more forward thinking.
Okay. How do people find you online?
So you can find me personally at Twitter @BusinessOfDave, and you can learn more about my company Bsquare at bsquare.com.
Thank you so much for joining us again, and thank you for watching. For Syscon TV, this is Roger Struckoff.